Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wandering Podcast, where we take advisement from outside the box. I'm Rihanna Ritter, your host. I'm an intuitive, sexuality, and authentic expression coach. Are you an accomplished professional who plays the part of having it all figured out? Who's strong for everyone else but feels lonely, misunderstood, like you can't tell anybody the truth about how stressed you are, how not passionate you are about your life and all that you've created? I guide my clients to deep, lasting fulfillment. I re-engage them with their bodies, their pleasure, their desire. I help them align to enjoy fulfillment and prosperity in all areas of their lives. Today, my guest is Bronson Hill. He's the founder of Bronson Equity and host of the Mailbox Money Show. He's spoken individually with over 2,500 investors and raised over $40 million for real estate and ATM machine fund deals. Bronson is also the author of Fire Yourself, Replace Your Working Income with Passive Income in 3 years or less. And he leads an exclusive mastermind for affluent passive investors. He's on a mission to help people achieve true financial freedom. Welcome, Bronson. Thanks for being here.
Hey, really excited to be here, Rihanna. I love that you're outside enjoying the beautiful day and the weather, and that's just so life-giving, isn't it, to be outside?
Yeah, got fresh air and, getting the blood flowing.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, so tell me about Bronson Equity and how you got started with that and the Mailbox Money Show.
Yeah, so really what our passion or my passion really is to help people start generating passive income. Warren Buffett has this quote. He says, unless you learn how to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. Now, ironically, Warren's 94 and he just decided he's going to retire. So if you have something you love, that's a whole other thing. But the idea of a lot of us know how to make money, right? We have a skill, we have a job, we've got a business. But the idea of us firing ourselves, which is the name of my book, is what happens if I don't enjoy my job anymore? What happens if I want to quit? I want to travel. What happens if I become, God forbid, I become disabled or a family member needs help? Do I have that option? And sometimes we realize we actually really don't have that option. And so people talk about financial freedom. I loved hearing about financial freedom over the years, but to me, it really meant time freedom because I just felt like I couldn't take a vacation, couldn't really take time off, and been able to create this life for myself now, having been, quit my corporate job 3 or 4 years ago. Was able to travel 6 times internationally last year, including the base camp of Mount Everest. So literally having that mountaintop experience,
Mm,
and also just really helping others to try to develop this passive cash flow in their life. And I feel like it is like a muscle. It's a skill set. It's something that people can learn. And so it doesn't matter if people feel like they're not good with money or things like that. Those are just all stories that we tell ourselves. And so I think being able to learn and grow is the best way to be able to get there.
yeah, we see all the time, I've dealt with this too. I still deal with it. Is this idea that, oh, that's not meant for me. I have to be of a certain class. I have to be born into a certain class for that to be available to me. And that's just not at all true. This is not rocket science. Anybody can learn it, right?
Yeah, well, and to your point, that's the common narrative that people really think that there's the haves and the have-nots. The media portrays this as well, but it's just not true. And one fact that shows this is that Fidelity Investments did a study in 2019, and they found that 86% of millionaires were self-made, meaning they did not inherit their wealth. So that's almost 9 out of 10 people that are millionaires. They did not inherit it. So that should be really encouraging to those of us that are not trust fund babies, right? That we actually can learn these things. These are learnable, teachable skills that I can figure out how to become wealthy because 9 out of 10 people figured it out. And so these are things that's why I wrote the book, Fire Yourself. I'm writing my second book now called Rich Brain, How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account, which are what are the mindsets around wealth that keep you from becoming wealthy, that we self-sabotage or we're not open to the opportunities as they come along.
It's really interesting the way that we self-sabotage. It shows up in so many different ways. We'll we'll be on the track to build something cool, and then all of a sudden magnetize some strange circumstance where all the extra cash flow that was available now has to go to some repair, or like people feel like these things are out of our control, but they're really not. We're really on a vibrational level with our feelings of self-worth that magnetizes a circumstance like that. It's not inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think that, for a lot of us, the challenge for a lot of people is that we think that tomorrow is going to be a lot like today, right? We're living in Groundhog Day. And in reality, we can fast forward the next 5 or 10 years and we can kind of predict what's going to happen. And the only way to actually get changes is we have to change the way that we think and we've got to change the actions that we do. And if we change those two things, we are going to get different results. But it feels very uncomfortable sometimes thinking or believing or confronting beliefs. Or, like, for example, for me, a big thing around worthiness was like, well, am I worthy of having wealth? Am I worthy of having great relationships? Because there's been these situations when I was a kid that happened that made me feel like I wasn't worthy, right? If, my parents are divorced, so my mom left, does that mean that I'm not worthy of love or whatever? I had to kind of go, really interact and do some of the personal work. But as I've done the personal work, Rihanna, and done a lot of the therapy and the other, just really getting into some of that stuff and really feeling what's the person that I want to be, that I believe that I am, that I'm loved, that I'm special, I'm chosen, that God's got a plan for me. All these things, like, it's beginning to change. And as I've had a breakthrough in that area, it's led to, like within 4 years, I basically 25x my net worth to a multiple 7-figure net worth, right? And that happened because of the work that I did around worthiness, around completing the things that I needed to complete with just kind of family of origin stuff. And a lot of people don't see that connection. They don't see that those things are actually very connected. And a lot of times we're limiting ourselves because we haven't done the work.
Absolutely. And I think we're getting less and less stigma around doing the work, but a lot of us were raised by parents who had some interaction with the military or whatever. And there's this authoritarian way of thinking, and that if you're diving into your feelings, that's just a waste of time. And uh, your point, 25x your net worth because of doing the work. It's a very good illustration that getting in touch with your feelings and working through childhood memories and reframing them is not a silly waste of time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's funny. I used to run this real estate meetup in Pasadena, where I live in California. And we had, 50, 60 people show up every month. And I remember we would do this real estate meetup and we would say, this is a transformation meeting where we talk about real estate. And I remember we had a guy in there because we were talking about some of the stuff about doing the work and different things. There was a guy in the first or second row and he was just looking around like, what this is like. He just thought it was like the cheesiest thing ever. We're talking about all this personal development and feelings and emotions and all this stuff. But what I realize is, like, it's so connected. It's all connected. And that's where, like, I love talking about this stuff because I can't separate, wealth creation and personal development, because and there are people we know, like, they get all the money and they become total jerks and they're totally unhappy and they're not. And so money amplifies. So I think if you're not willing to say, hey, as I grow my wealth, what's the reason for that? What's the why? What's the give back? What's the legacy? How can I impact others? If you don't do the work alongside of developing wealth, it's at the expense of the other things, right? And so then people get everything they ever wanted and then realize they're completely unhappy because they didn't really actually look at the not just the wealth of money. They weren't looking at wealth of spirit and wealth of generosity and wealth of relationships and wealth of other types of things.
Yeah. And I think what happens for a lot of us is if we haven't done the work, but we have built the wealth, we will lose the wealth, or we will start doing the work because we realize, oh my gosh, this is not as fulfilling as I thought with the things like my relationships are totally suffering. I have a really hard time interacting with people. Um, and wealth has a lot to do with relationships. I mean, most things in our lives have everything to do with relationships. So when we can learn how to deepen our relationship with ourselves, that's when and sometimes it takes doing the work. Like, you have to be taken out of your wealth to really understand that I'm still doing the work. I'm still a lot happier. I'm still a lot more at peace, even without all that stuff. And then I can build it back because I have that foundational self-worth, and I believe that I can keep it, that it's not sinful to keep. So many people think it's sinful, like if I am wealthy then I'm taking from other people, but
Mm-hmm.
a rising tide lifts all ships,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was really raised in a religious family, and there was some of that. It's like, okay, well, if I have, if I have more, doesn't mean other people have less. And I think abundance is that, if we work together, we can make the pie bigger. There's things we can do, and it's not taking from other people. But again, it's a lot of these limiting beliefs that one of the things that came up in my research and having these 2,500 interviews with millionaires was really a lot of times, a lot of people, there's this concept of wealth worthiness where it's like, we kind of get the level of what we feel worthy of. So for me, if I make $100,000 a year, I'll just find a way to make $100,000 a year. The person who makes $1 million a year will just find a way to make $1 million a year. Most of the times, people have this kind of like amount, and then they'll take incremental jumps. They'll kind of be like, okay, I'm going from 100,000 to 110,000. Now it's 130,000. They'll kind of make incremental jumps, hopefully over time. But there are people that take these big jumps. Like I had this 25x kind of jump. Well, how did that happen? Is because I started to see myself as a person worthy of these greater things. And so there's ways you can change that, but it has to do with just really seeing yourself as a worthy person. And again, not just in your head, it's got to get into your heart, because there's things we know, like we know we're loved. We know we have people in our life that care about us. We know that we're doing good in the world. But we don't feel it. We don't feel it in our heart. So how do we get it like in here is we have to find those things that we know to be true or we want to be true and meditate on them, right? So I call them whisperings. So affirmations are what you say in the mirror to yourself, and I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, people like me. Whisperings are what you say when you walk into a room. Like for me, let's say I'm a single guy, I walk into a room, it's a party, and there's a beautiful woman over there. I want to say hello, but my self-talk is, oh, she's never going to like me, I'm not good looking, I've got nothing to offer. Well, how's that conversation going to go? It's probably not going to go, it's not going to happen at all. And even if it does, it's not going to go well, right? So it's the idea of, what are we whispering to ourselves? How do we change that so we really get on our the best, like we're on our side to say, no, you are worthy of this, you are loved. We kind of talk to ourselves as we'd speak to a friend. So it's not just in relationships, it's not just in kind of personal development world, but it's absolutely with wealth. And there's ways I've seen in my own life where I passed on deals because I didn't feel like I was really worthy of them, right? They were much bigger and I thought whatever. And then I started to change this. And then I started to, I give one example of, I had this deal that was about 5x the size of our business. And I didn't see it initially, but because I've been doing this work, I was like, oh, maybe this actually would work. And it actually opened up a lot of doors to be able to consider this deal and be able to move forward. And so we ended up not being able to close on it because of the tariffs to China and stuff. So it's unrelated, but I look at it like a win because I actually did see myself as being worthy of being able to achieve that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And sometimes we don't give ourselves the chance to learn. Like we think that I already have to have all the skills down and this deal has to go perfectly. And if
Yeah.
I'm caught and somebody asks me a question and I don't have an immediate answer, then I'm not worthy of this deal, which is,
Yeah. Yeah, we have this critical mind that just, I think it says our mind is like 87% negative, and it has to do with when we walk around and there be a lion around the corner, or that we have this physical threat to our health, or something bad would happen. So we're trained to see those threats, right? We're trained to see the negative. But in our culture now, it's much less likely we're going to walk around a lion or someone's going to be attacking us around the corner, something like that. You're on a hike, so hopefully no, you won't see any mountain lions. They're afraid of us. But the idea that we have to always be on alert versus when the self-talk, how do I speak to myself? I'm a great person, I'm loved, I'm chosen, I'm special, God's got a plan for my life. Everything that doesn't work out is actually working to build me. It doesn't happen to me, it happens for me, right? These are all things we can whisper to ourselves. I'm enough. No matter what I do, on my worst day, I'm enough, right? These are things that they help build that sense of worth of who we are. And that when we do approach finance, we approach investing, we approach a business deal, we approach something in our work, we're actually showing up from a place of, I'm worthy of this, right? And we're not necessarily saying it, but we show up that way. Energetically, we're that way, and people see us as that way. That's how people that are doing impossible things, and whether I know there's controversial person, but Elon Musk, he like, we're going to Mars, we're doing this, we're doing whatever. Well, he shows up that way, and then the stuff that was impossible starts happening, right? So I think being somebody who is willing to show up in a way, and then the world just responds to how you show up.
yeah, absolutely. And bringing people on to help you, in areas that you aren't the best, like Elon Musk is good at that, right?
Right.
Building teams and helping people. I don't know his
Right.
leadership style, but people who do amazing things in the world and it becomes a long-term thing typically have a leadership style that helps the people that they bring on shine, and they don't feel threatened by those people, and they appreciate the depth of skill that other people have. They don't have to be number one. Like as a manager, when I was starting in management, I thought I've got to be better than everybody on my team, or they're not going to trust me, and I won't be, able to help them. And that's also not true, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's again, it's amazing the things that we feel like we need to be or the like it really becomes just talking to somebody about this recently that in a way it's inauthentic, right? We're showing up in a way, and I was in sales for 10 years and I knew how I had to show up, right? If I show up as myself, I may not get the sale, but if I show up this way, I know that I'll be likable. I know that they'll kind of want to work with me. And that was one of the challenges I had with working corporate is like it's hard to show up authentically, right? And so we can leave pieces of ourself. And that's why I think a lot of people don't enjoy their job because they're not really able to show up authentically. But I think when we can show up authentically, and again, there's appropriate, it's not like we have tears every single time. We have to kind of reel certain things in, but there's a time and place for things. But I think when we can just show up more authentically, and just kind of let go of the like, hey, if it doesn't work out here, there's other jobs, there's other opportunities, there's other deals, there's other things. And I think just having that abundance mindset rather than for me, this is how I did it was a scarcity mindset. If I don't get the sale, if I don't do well in this job, I may never have another shot to do this or whatever. And it did drive me to be very successful. I won awards. I was top 10%. Off rep of the year, all these things. But in a way, it wasn't really freedom, right? It left me in a place where I wasn't authentic and I lived in a place where I wasn't really happy.
Yeah, I think we can show up that way in parenting too. I don't know if you have kids, but
Yeah.
I do. Like I can get really burnt out on being around my kids because I am projecting this need for perfectionism. I have to show up a certain way for them. I have to be appropriate at all times. I have to like make everything very vanilla and Disney, and kids need to see their parents have emotions. They need to see their
Yeah.
parents accept failure and just maybe have an emotion about it, maybe cry about it. Like we don't have to be
Yeah.
perfect all the time.
Right. Yeah. My daughter's 12, 12 and a half. And yeah, I try to show up and just be, who I am. And sometimes I'll apologize and be like, hey, honey, I'm sorry. I lost my temper and, it's okay. And, I hope you can forgive me. And, it's like, then you see the human side of us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of this the thing like one thing I want to touch on is we can say affirmations to ourselves all day long, but you had mentioned you've got to feel it in your heart. Like our subconscious does not believe us when we start saying affirmations. It throws a big fit and is like, no, you're definitely not good enough. I don't know why you're lying to yourself. Right. So, what's some of the things that you've done to actually start feeling it in your heart and start embodying it?
Yes, I'm not a scientist. I don't know exactly. I know for me personally, I tried. I had some affirmations. I would read them, and they felt inauthentic. It wasn't working, whatever. But I did them for over 6 months, a year, and over time, they did start to feel real. What happened is when I say I'm worthy of love and belonging, right? I'm worthy of the love and belonging of others. What would happen is it would bring up for me those situations where I didn't feel worthy of love and like, I mean, not when I was doing the affirmation, but it would bring them up later. So, and then it kind of forced me to do some of the work, right? Where I'd be like, well, was that really true? Was I really not worthy of it? Like whatever. And I was like, well, no, I am worthy of it. So I think again, we have these tapes of negativity, especially when we're kids. We say things about ourselves and our life. We just have this internal monologue. And the only way to change is you've got to change the tapes. And so I think for me, some of it is, repetition, and some of it is leaning into those feelings of no, I really am worthy. Okay, well, if like for me, one thing I say, and I tie in spirituality with this as well, is that it's like for me, okay, well, my identity is like I see myself as a king's son, right? That I'm like a son of the king, and so to me that affects how I live my life now. But I didn't always feel that way, so I try to say, well, what was that like when I was younger? Well, it was almost like I was a king's son that was kidnapped and raised by paupers, right? And I don't tell my parents this or tell them, but it's the idea
Yeah.
that like if you had a king's son, it's almost like a Disney movie or something, right? Where a king's son got ransomed or a king's daughter, and they were raised by poor people. There's still royalty. There's still a king's son or daughter. It's just they don't know it, right? So if that happened and they were rescued at age, a teenager or as an adult, it would take a while for them to realize, like, no, I actually don't have to tiptoe around here. I don't actually, I'm actually part of the family. I'm actually royalty in this kingdom. And so I think it's just reframing things, right? It's continual reframing. And again, what will happen is it's not a clean this to this, but I've just watched over time as I've continued to move toward growth, toward health, toward, okay, this is actually true, and I see it as that way, then it brings up the things I needed to deal with. And sometimes there's traumas, other things that are there. But what it allows you to actually become that person. Right. So I think it's not a clean, like you say at one time and you feel it, but the more you do it, the more your brain starts to say, oh, well, this is actually what it is. And then it starts to challenge those other beliefs that actually were counter to I'm a worthy person, or I thinking that, oh, I'm not loved, whatever. Well, it starts to challenge those things. So I think that, as you are intentional and you have these practices, whatever they are, they begin to change who you are. It's neuroplasticity. It's not like, they thought the brain was just kind of what it is once it's developed, but it's a very fluid, you can change your brain. And so this is one of the ways you change your brain.
Yeah, I love that. So repetition, and then, it does take time. I, at some point, was like, okay, the work needs to work immediately. And it just doesn't happen that way. And then
Right.
you find out that when it doesn't, and all the things that were going to go wrong and are terrible, they could, and maybe they will, but you're
They do,
still
yeah.
okay. And you still have time and you still can
Right.
keep doing it.
Right.
So repetition. And then one of the other things that I did was, embodiment. Like, I would come up against something physically that I was just terrified to do. And one of it was like dancing in front of people without drinking.
Yeah.
And it's called ecstatic dance, like no substance. You just go and you dance. And it was just I didn't want to do it. I felt all this terror in my body, did all this resistance. But once you just do it, like, and the way that I did it was not full out. It was just like I was just kind of closed my eyes and just moved a little bit. But getting past that threshold, um, really facing that fear, you find out this is not that big of a deal. Like, I was really making this a bigger deal than I needed to.
Yeah.
So when you're, you know, doing deals like you are, you're having conversations with people who you might think are better than you. Like, the practice, the more you do it.
Y- Yeah. Sorry, I think it froze there for a minute there.
Oh,
Um, yeah, yeah. So you're just saying the practice that you do, the more you practice, the easier it gets.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that, life is happening continually. Things are going to come up. Things are always going to come up and hit us a little differently. I loved your exercise of doing something uncomfortable for you, dancing, and not, like you said, without alcohol. And to me, I recently did an improv class. I haven't done any improv or drama stuff really since high school, so it's been years. And I felt, really uncomfortable most of the time. It was fun, but it was uncomfortable. But I like doing things that are changing the way that I approach things. That I become a person that does the hard thing. So I include things in my life. I do cold plunging. I have a cold plunge in my house. I try to cold plunge a few times a week. I do, I'm doing a half marathon this weekend. I do Spartan races, these obstacle course races. I try to, because I think what I'm teaching myself is I'm the person who can do the hard thing, right? And so then when I choose to do the hard thing, if I've sat in a cold plunge for 5 minutes, it doesn't matter if I have an investor who's upset or some difficulty. It's like, well, I've already done a hard thing, right? So it's like it becomes, I'm kind of training myself that I'm that type of person. So I think it comes to, when it comes to some of this worthiness stuff as well. I think, when you are doing the hard, you go in and do the hard things. It's just you become someone who becomes a very interesting person, because most people, we go to comfort when really what we need is character. What we really need is growth. What we really need is learning. And I could get into even more of that, but I think that just, again, being somebody who's willing to move toward discomfort, things are a little awkward, things are a little uncomfortable. That's a great place to be, because that's where the growth happens.
yeah, absolutely. So, in your book, Fire Yourself, can you give us some highlights? Like, how do people maybe go about this in 3 years or less?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think. There's a lot of ways to do it. I think for some people that have, the book's really written for those that have more money than they have time. So for a lot of people, they, or they're a doctor, they're an attorney, they own a business, they're a lawyer, they're a professional, and they're like, hey, I've got some money. Maybe I've got $1 million or more in net worth, and they're like, I want to invest passively to where it doesn't take up more of my time. I can keep doing my job, or maybe I can get to where I replace my living expenses. So some people think they have to replace their income. To me, I was making over $200,000 a year, but I only needed to really make about 5 or 6 thousand a month to cover my living expenses, which was enough for me, right? So if I found a way to do that, then I was free and I had a choice of making work optional. So I think for the people that have more money than time, that's one option. Through being a passive investor, investing in businesses and in real estate, oil and gas, things like this to help reduce taxes or increase cash flow. Another way is if you have, like me at the time, I was making a good income, but I really didn't have a lot of net worth. And so I just made time and I basically tried to find a way on the active side. How can I help people that have a money problem? Not that they don't have money, but they have money and they don't know how to invest it in a way that actually generates cash flow. Because Wall Street really is not good at that. And so I just started raising capital, learning about doing that. You can also find deals or partner with people. People are buying businesses, all kinds of things. There's different ways to do it. And so I think the book really is focused a little more on passive investing and just how do I vet deals? How do I, what's what why is what I'm doing not working right now? But a couple of the biggest ideas and ways that I found to really get to the next level is to go to local meetups, go to conferences that are investing conferences, ask questions, and just be there and just be open and learn. And it can feel again a little uncomfortable, but I still feel I'm an extrovert. I still feel uncomfortable at networking events, right? But just being there, being in the room, showing up, asking questions, learning, and you never know who you're going to meet. I've been at in networking events, and I've made a lot of money from different deals and people that I've met through those events. And so those are all opportunities and ways to grow.
Yeah, a lot of people are unwilling to show up to that room because they feel like, oh, I don't even have $10,000 to invest. So I'm going to meet somebody and they're going to say something to me and I'm going to look like an idiot because what am I doing in this room of investors when I don't belong here, right? But you've
Yeah.
touched on we have skill sets. We have the things that we do for the work for our job, whatever, and those skill sets are needed with
Yeah.
investors and with meetups and where you meet people and you never know, who you're going to meet and what help they need.
Yeah, and a lot of times people think, a lot of networking, people think you just shake hands and hand out business cards and talk about your stuff, but that's not good networking, right? That's nobody wants
Mhm.
to be because that's just, that's very impersonal. Versus if I meet you, Rihanna, at a meetup, I'd be like, well, tell me about what you do. What are you working on? What are some challenges? And I need to put myself in a give first approach that, hey, I want to try to help Rihanna in the way that she needs for what she's working on. So it could be I'm talking with you and I realized, oh my gosh, like you have to meet Tony because he was talking about exactly what you're talking about. And I think you guys should connect because it may actually lead to some business thing of what you're looking for, right? Or, hey, I read this book and as you're talking, this book is coming to mind. I want to share it with you, right? So those things are super powerful, right? Because then I'm in a place where I'm trying to give first. And I've heard it said people are loyal to you to the kind of equal to the amount that they experience transformation with you, right? So if you bring somebody in their life, you're helping to make introductions, maybe help them with a resource, you open up a door for them, something like that. That's really powerful networking, right? It's not again just the shaking hands, and nobody wants to talk to somebody who's just like, let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm doing this and this and this, and they can't stop talking, right? Somebody
Yeah.
who's listening and they're intuitive and they're asking and they're really seeing you and hearing you, and like, well, hey, let me see if I can help you with that. Like that's a great person to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. Networking should, I mean, much like dating, it can't be transactional immediately. Like if you're so focused on closing a deal and bringing in cash right here, right now, you're coming from a scarcity mindset, you're putting off that energy. People are not attracted to want to talk to that. So it does have to be, again, we have to be aware that we cannot be in a panic. We cannot be so goal oriented that we're not building an actual relationship. Like networking is about building relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm curious about the ATM machine. Um, I've never heard of this. Um, I'd love
Yeah.
to know what that is.
Yeah, so we were partnered with a large operator of ATM machines, and you're just getting, we raised money for different deals. That was one deal we raised for. We've also done, car washes and other types of investments. But basically, what we really like is when we find a business that generates cash flow, we either like buying the business or we like to invest with them somehow and be able to get cash flow from the business. So if it, provides consistent cash flow monthly, quarterly, that's an awesome way to go about it. We found some businesses, especially mid-sized businesses. So we acquire different businesses, but let's say a business produces, $1 million per year of cash flow or of profit. Some of these businesses are selling for 3 times or less of the profit, for sale. So you can basically, for a business that's producing $1 million in cash, you can buy it sometimes for $3 million, which is kind of amazing. And sometimes you can get a loan to buy most of it and then just bring a little bit of cash. So we have some that we've been able to put no money or little money down to be able to buy a business that produces a lot in cash, which is amazing. So we like that option. There's also some other options of things like ATMs or car washes, where one car wash you can typically buy or sell these for 3 to 5 times the profit, right? But if you have 50 car washes, you can sell them for 10 or 15 times the profits, right? So there's this huge multiple that happens. I know you have a financial background as well, Rihanna, but like, if you can just simply put things together and sell them to a larger buyer, which is typically private equity, you can do really well on that. So those are things that we're interested in. And again, investors, a lot of times we find ways to partner where they can be passive. They don't have to be the one who's operating it. There's two parties in a lot of these investments. One's a general partner, like our group. We operate, we do the tax forms, we make sure things are going well. We work on getting the right staff and all that stuff in there. And then the limited partners, they're limited in their they basically just simply put funds into deals, and then they're not on the operational side, right? So those are ways that we really like to partner with investors, so that they don't have to take up their time. We use our time, our teams, we develop the things in there, have our partners, and then they are able to get cash flow and appreciation and tax benefits.
Awesome. And how do people find you and, the projects that you're interested in? How do you go about working with new people?
Yeah, yeah. So I have a free gift for your audience. I just wrote it mid 2025 here, and it's my 3 favorite cash flow investments today, and it's about 10 pages. Just some things people haven't heard of. I'm pretty sure, but if people text the number 33777, so if you text the number, you just get on your phone and text to that number. You text the word cash flow, so just all one word, cash flow. You text it to the number 33777. We'll send you that free guide. And then people can also hear about our upcoming deals or set up a call and get connected with us and stuff as well. But I'd love to share that gift with your audience.
Awesome. And we'll put contact information in the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to share with the audience?
No, I think I love the conversation. I love what you're doing about authenticity and personal development. I think it really is the gateway to become a more well-rounded person, a happier person, and I would say also a more successful person. A lot of times we think that I'll start living life when these certain external things happen, but a lot of times you do the internal work and then the external things start happening, right? So not just by themselves, but it leads to those things to be able to happen. So love the work that you're doing. Love the way that you're telling your story in a way that's authentic, and you're helping people to get to really own their own story as well. So well done on that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. It's been awesome to experience, you sharing your knowledge, and we'll have to talk again.
Thanks so much, Rihanna. It was great to meet you.